Well, hello everyone. What a time it's been. BlizzCon's cancelled. Bobby has taken a pay cut and a bunch of other things have happened. Patch 9.1.5, it's here in a few days. Boosting has once more entered the conversation because of Mike Ybarra and also what Square Enix have just done in FF14. There's a lot to talk about, you know. One of the books was delayed a bit. There's now questions over what the timeline of future WoW content's going to be. You know, it's both a messy and quiet time for the World of Warcraft, really, with 9.1.5 about to come out, and the realities of 9.2 meaning that we really should have a PTR quite soon. Perhaps we've made it through most of the rough times. Perhaps even with the help of our sponsor, noom.com/Bellular. Go there and take your free quiz and get started with the free trial at my link. So, they are taking a different approach to health, weight loss, and education. CBT, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. It really is the good stuff. It actually works. And they have got all of those learnings and all of this behavioral science worked into their program so it can actually work for you. So after the quiz sets you up, you're looped in with your coach. Your coach is a trained human. Then you're there. So there's the likes of, say, the step tracking, which of course my phone does automatically. It loops in, it's super handy, weighing in, and then meals, where they've got a color-coded caloric density system that suggests alternatives, as well as educates you on caloric density, as well as a grocery list feature to keep it all manageable. And what's great is that as you do this, Noom takes you through education, like on weight loss and psychology and really everything there, in a very bite-sized, manageable format. It's not a super hard, no pain, no gain kind of deal. It's all there to be a program that's tailored to you, that you can actually adhere to, that is backed up by the best science. I mean, for me, you know, I've got a few habits to kick, a few bit of weight to lose. Working at 100% stress for many, many, many years has not been great for my health. So really solving those problems, helping people with that is their mission. And if you go to noom.com/Bellular, you can get started with your free quiz today. So big thanks to them for what they're doing. And let's get into the show. BlizzConline is BlizzCon. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't have even tried that one, should I? But yes, there's going to be no BlizzConline in February. They've scrapped the event, but they have said they're still going to be doing announcements and updates for their games. So, are all of their announcements ready? Were they all? Would it be the case that if they did a BlizzConline, it was all in one day, you know, just half their teams wouldn't have had the business? In which case, having a more flexible announcement cadence will mean that more of their teams will be able to show things when they're actually ready to, which I think overall would be better. Additionally, this does mean that PR and, you know, marketing-wise, it's going to be an update from the World of Warcraft development team, an update from the Overwatch 2 development team. The Blizzard name won't be there as much. And I think we all know the Blizzard name is somewhat tarried because of all of these, you know, all of these things that have happened. So I think they've probably done that a little bit too for just the PR reasons. And I mean, certainly if this was a physical BlizzCon, could you imagine what a Q&A would look like from a public relations and optics perspective? Yeah, ouch. So you might then be wondering, where does this leave World of Warcraft? Well, the thing is, if there was going to be a World of Warcraft announcement in February, I think there still is going to be one. We really do have to think deeply about the next expansion, though. If you look at patch 9.2, and then you think about how the book was delayed into March, it does make you wonder, okay, maybe patch 9.2 is going to be mid-March. Now that basically is like 9 months or whatever from patch 9.1 to 9.2, which is obviously not acceptable, but then again, that is just what we're dealing with, given how COVID does seem to have hit the WoW development team quite a bit harder than most, or at least certainly in a more public way. Now, if that's going to be happening in March, I just have to level with you guys. It's going to be bloody hard for the next expansion's timings. They have had a WoW expansion roughly every 2 years. And if they were going to keep their pace, then I suppose you could say November 2022 for World of Warcraft's next expansion, 10.0, whatever that may be. And if that is the case, then patch 9.2 that comes out in March, maybe with a beta for the next, or an alpha test for the next expansion being in April. I mean, a 6-month testing process is something they can pull off. Marketing-wise, they could pull that off. I think that is ultimately what the higher-ups and all of that in the team would really want to have happen. but we just can't be 100% sure that it will happen. I also have to think about Blizzard's overall release cadence. What if it is the case that Overwatch 2 is ready for a Q4 2022 release? If that is the case, and Q3 World of Warcraft really is impossible, then could we actually see a situation where it's actually Q1 2023 that World of Warcraft's next expansion comes out? It's the sort of thing where if that was the case, we could all really understand how that could be better for the game itself. You know, maybe a March or April patch 9.2 that has enough work, you know, into it that it truly is an incredible, great patch. Maybe a Throne of Thunder-like patch that we all love. And we could then maybe see if they were able to just write off some of the time that's being messed around with and get a clean shot at the next expansion. Then, yeah, perhaps then a Q1 2023 expansion could actually release and be brilliant. But that's very much looking at it in isolation for the quality of just the game. And the really hard bit about an MMORPG is that, you know, there's the phrase, a day late and a dollar short. Well, you can actually have the money, but be 2 days late. And your people will have went to another MMO and got a friend group there and ingrained habits there. And then it actually means, yeah, you're 2 days late, but tough shit, the thing you wanted is more expensive now, so you may as well be a dollar short. And that, I think, is the fundamental worry overall about World of Warcraft from a more existential perspective. So as far as I'm concerned, I really do hope they're able to find a way where patch 9.2 can come out in March and the next expansion can come out in November. And then, because they're used to working from home and maybe they fix up their scope, fix up their relationship with Risk, they're able to get their schedule back on target, and then World of Warcraft can be in a more healthy place. I truly hope it does go in that direction, but I think overall that is the thing that we worry about right now, and the lack of solid information and dates from Blizzard, I think a lot of World of Warcraft players are also worried. And that's the thing. These games are virtual worlds, you know, the World of Warcraft, the Final Fantasy, Lost Ark that I hear a lot of people are playing now. And what people really want in games like this is they want to, basically, they want to have faith in the integrity of the state and the government of the game they're playing because they're putting a lot of time into it. So do they trust that the game will constantly receive updates and expansions and that it is governed by a development team that, you know, truly understand it and are doing just having more hits than misses? And I think that's where Final Fantasy XIV inspires a lot of confidence in players. And right now, I think that is what World of Warcraft has to claw back. Well, and any definitive dates would be pure speculation, so onwards to the next topic. Well, we certainly have talked a lot about the Blizzard news over on our other channel, but today, a significantly larger change has happened, one that perhaps is timed with a quarterly earnings call. Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision Blizzard, has issued a statement, and there are a fair few changes. And look, I am going to hit you up with a cynicism on it, obviously, but it universally is all good stuff, right? Like, objectively, it's all in the right direction, but it also is just a few days before the earnings call, so, Now, I'll keep this nice, quick, and simple for you. So here's the rub. First up, a zero-tolerance harassment policy company-wide. Basically, it seems like they are ratcheting up the severity of and the strictness of their processes, especially for cases of retaliation. So, you know, when an employee brings a problem up and their boss kind of retaliates, the company's going to be like, hey, boss, you're no longer in a job. And that's important because sometimes in the middle management of a company, middle manager may have personal incentives to climb that corporate ladder that don't actually align with the broader company policy. And that can be really bad for the people who are working underneath those managers. And I'm sure we all have heard many stories from our own lives of cases like that. Now, in many cases where people would have got a written warning, it's now going to be a termination. And this is especially if it involves any legally protected category. Now, as per the EEOC, that means somebody's race, color, religion, sex, national origin, age, disability, and genetic information. I mean, yeah, like, no shit. Don't give people shit for their immutable characteristics. That's very unfair indeed. So I think that's a really good policy, and we would do the same. Moreover, it's the sort of thing where that's a principle that is just true regardless of individual specifics, so it's a good one to have. Then they talk a bit about DEI initiatives where they want to basically increase the women and NB headcount by around 50%. Now that means by, not to. So right now they're at 23%, so those numbers would bring them to 33.5. Now, if you want to talk numbers there, well, in the UK, our body, Yuki, its most recent poll had 28% female, 2% NB, 7% male in their latest census. I saw numbers from the IGDA that were 24% and 2%, which is actually around where Blizzard is now. So I think their game plan is probably just to clean up their act, right? So there's none of those bad stories going on, so that they seem like a more appealing place to work, so that then they seem more appealing than the average in the industry, meaning that they would be able to attract that specific talent such that naturally they would end up at an above average breakdown. I suppose that's basically what they want. In terms of the money, I imagine that's the likes of career days, apprenticeships, them being corporate sponsors, you know, for like a technical college, things like that. All in, that's going to cost them 500 mil. That's 250 mil over 10 years and another 250 mil over 5 years. As for what's next then, well, they've actually tried to meet one of the employee demands, which is the one of forced arbitration, but haven't really. So they are stopping the practice of forced arbitration for sexual harassment and discrimination claims. Now, that's good, but what about, you know, regular harassment and, other things like that? That would be some questions people would have. So they're not going as far as Bungie, who just ended the practice altogether. Now, they're also saying they're about increasing visibility on pay equity, saying that actually, on average, women earn slightly more than men for comparable work right now, which is an interesting thing, and they've said they're going to continue to report on that. And apparently, there's just on all this stuff going to be quarterly updates. And then as the final point, the CEO of the company, Bobby Kotick, has asked the board to reduce his total compensation to 62.5 grand until their goals are achieved. So that's going to be his salary. That is the lowest salary he can actually get under Californian law. And he's also instructed them not to give him any bonuses or additional equity in the company. So fair play there, but unlike, say, Satoru Iwata, right, the now sadly passed CEO of Nintendo, he did that, I think, a little bit more proactively. As for Bobby, it does feel like he was kind of bludgeoned into the position and has only really done this, announced this just before the earnings call. Now, of course, don't worry for Bobby. Bobby's going to be just fine. His portfolio value will, of course, do excellently if Activision Blizzard stock goes up. And he will get dividend payments whenever they are issued. I mean, recently, he got a bonus of, about 456,000 common stock. Now, with a dividend, yield of 47 cents per share, which was their most recent issuing of a dividend, he would get a cool 215K from that. And that's just from the stock he got from that one bonus, not all the other stock he's going to earn, or own even. So, look, that's him earning as a function of being a shareholder, not as a function of his job. And it is absolutely true that his work-related compensation has fallen significantly. He has taken a humongous pay cut. Now, that said, to you and me, we see the numbers he deals with, and we're like, oh no, what a terrible shame. So, it does ring a bit odd, doesn't it? So overall here, this stuff is all good. But there are other employee demands to be met here. And of course, there's a whole debacle over the DFEH, which is the Californian state body, and the EEOC, which is the federal state body, them both squabbling over Activision. So don't expect this story to go away quickly, though this is certainly a larger development than most. Well, they've lost the lore. Yes, the lore has ran away. Quite literally. The new player experience of World of Warcraft at Endgame is getting a little bit messy, now to the point where the lore of Shadowlands literally does not make any sense if you're playing it in the game and has to be found on external websites. So, do you remember those kind of annoying, repetitious quests to save the faction leaders in Torghast, right? Well, those are pretty boring to do, but after you did them, you got key lore in the form of those big Anduin cutscenes. And I didn't go back to check this because with patch 9.1, I just assumed they were made skippable and that the progress was account-wide. But it actually turns out, no, those quests basically can't be picked up and are essentially gone. And this essentially does mean that new players will instantly see Anduin come in and get the Archon, and they will have no idea how or why Anduin is suddenly a bad guy, which is a bit strange. Now, Blizzard kind of tried to cover this up with some flavor text from Jaina about another Maw Walker saving the faction leaders, but it just doesn't work when you don't see the Anduin stuff. It's sort of naturally in the quest flow. Now, it's just this weird thing where it's like for a company that is very, very focused on telling a great quality narrative, Blizzard are doing a bit of a bad job here. We have to be real with that. Here, the core problem, I think, is that they tied that narrative to a bunch of cutscenes, not in-game content, and then those cutscenes were tied to extremely tedious and repetitious quest chains that were basically just a barrier to entry to get some progress and unlock a feature. So, let's be real. We all watch these cutscenes in YouTube anyway, and most of us knew about them because they went up to YouTube. Once more, cheers, Wowhead. So the solution here, I think it's simple. Tell your story through quests, put more of your A-plot into the level up experience so that all players understand what's going on, and then have an endgame story that is not so fragmented. I know, it sounds like I've been playing another MMO that does those things differently. I don't mean it as some sort of mean-spirited dig at Blizzard. I mean that in the context of Blizzard always doing a great job historically of borrowing an idea and bringing it to an incredible level of polish, and I would love to see them do that with how they handle quests and narrative. Okay then, a little bit in 9.1.5. So, the patch comes out November 2nd, but Blizzard are actually still working on it. Indeed, many feared when they saw a release candidate in PTR that there'd be no class changes. Now, if you saw those fears, they were definitely good fears to have because they weren't there, and it did say release candidate, but there are changes going on now in the PTR. Including Binding Shot basically being destroyed, and then kind of being returned to normal. So that was fun. Certainly, though, they are cutting it close. These class changes are coming in, and the patch is out in a few days. I suppose that's to be expected, given everything that we can assume about their schedule. I mean, hell, even the Mage Tower had issues during its limited testing window. Though, to be honest, I wouldn't be too worried or too doomsay about it right now because they literally have over a month to tune that thing internally because the Legion Time Walking releases December 7th. Which is a bit tricky because it's a bit of a FOMO feeling event, in that it doesn't last for that long, and I didn't like their preview blog that kind of amped up the FOMO. It was like, oh, champions, heroes, there's not much time to do this, you better do it. It's just, it's not a great look given other things going on in the market, because I think that is around when Endwalker Raids release. I mean, also not that many people, but Expanse's new season, Halo Infinite, I don't know, I might be busy. But really, look, we all know what the crack is here. This patch should have been out in November. They're either woefully behind, or, and hopefully it's this, they have a lot more people working on patch 9.2. Hopefully it's the latter. So overall, 9.1.5 objectively is a fantastic patch full of brilliant changes if you look at it in terms of what it's supposed to do. But they are changes that should have been there based on beta feedback at launch. This is going to be a fantastic patch for existing players who will now get to enjoy doing the same dungeons and all those things that they've been used to, but maybe with some new Covenant abilities and content and a bit more freedom to mix and match. But this isn't a patch that's going to bring people back, and I don't think Time Walking will bring that many people back, at least until it is no longer framed as a time-limited event. Version of it that allows me to do Throne of Thunder 10 min eye level synced, well, that would be interesting. I would love to show my guild that experience. Time walking is a thing in World of Warcraft, a big new feature, that would get people back. So hopefully the next expansion evolves these things, but until then, patch 9.2 is what really is important. And you can say it's copium, maybe it is, but I am going to say there is a silver lining. Look, if you're patient, there's lots of other fantastic video games to play, so your gaming time is not going to be left wanting. Whenever 9.2 does come out, it will benefit greatly from how patch 9.1.5 has fixed a bunch of problems. Assuming 9.2 keeps it simple in the systems, it totally could be a fantastic patch. I mean, some degree of thought led to what 9.1.5 has done, Those thoughts surely won't fly out the window, right? And time for a costume change because more news broke. Right, WoW Classic Season of Mastery has a release plan. Servers are going to go online for your name reservations November 11th, and it's going to be coming out November 16th. That's pretty speedy, really. Now, for TLDR here, there's a new Soul of Iron system that is essentially a hardcore mode, as well as increased boss difficulty, some mechanics being added back in, faster leveling, and a more aggressive release cadence. So basically, do Classic again, but harder, like fundamentally harder, and with fewer farm weeks between the raids. A lot more niche than regular Classic. I mean, personally, I would rather them kind of build a, like, you know, OSRS, like a sort of Classic Plus thing, rather than the seasonal approach, just given it's an MMORPG. But I guess we'll just see how the future pans out. I mean, hey, does this appeal to you? For the business side, I wonder if this is just them trying to get the numbers up a little bit, because obviously it has been a wee bit more of a rough time, so who knows? But they certainly have been dipping into the Classic pot a lot with TBC and now this. I wonder what the Classic situation is going to look like when there's also a Wrath. That'll be a lot of WoW releases. And there's a new store mount. Yes, and it's just that. There's no 6-month subscription tied into this one. Now, as always, we'll wheel out the usual statement. It's a fantastic looking mount made by incredible artists with beautiful animations. That's what we expect from store mounts. They usually are cut above the rest. Of course, all the usual store mount criticisms apply here. And the other thing is this is undoubtedly the worst time to release such a thing. But it is essentially a case of printing money, given, I mean, how much this looks like a domestic cat. And, you know, we all love cats, or at least most of us, or many of us. I cannot help but wonder if this is not part of the 6-month bundle, because they know that, like, it's a big domestic cat and it's super cute. Cat people are going to buy it no matter what, so why give it to them with the sub they're already paying? Maybe that's conspiratorial, but I kind of think it might be the case. And indeed, if that is the case, then I suppose we could see another 6-month mount promo around when patch 9.2 arrives. So that would be us in pace for, like, what, 3-4 sort of store mount thingies a year. It's kind of funny because, you know, they've done this cat and they've then threw a wild amount of Hearthstone content into the 6-month WoW sub thing. I think that just means, like, they are trying to, you know, they're in a situation where obviously they're business. They need to bring the money in to make the, you know, the uppers happy. So they're kind of just throwing the kitchen sink at it. I guess they're just doing what they got to do there from a business perspective. Certainly, though, there's probably a lot of game developers on the WoW team who are thinking, that's a cool mount. I wish we were releasing it in a better environment. This is bad timing. But hey, the game developers often don't call the shots, so it is what it is. Some more meta news. Vicarious Visions have lost their name, so I suppose the merging into Blizzard Entertainment has somewhat completed. They may end up being called Blizzard Albany. Hopefully, though, they'll be able to keep their company culture and identity, things like that. If you're not aware, Vicarious Visions have worked on numerous successful projects. As an example, the perfection that was Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered, also Diablo 2 Resurrected. I believe they're now helping out quite a bit in Diablo 4 and potentially some other Blizzard projects. But they very much now are Blizzard. And I suppose it does make sense. Their former studio head, Jen O'Neill, is in fact co-leader of Blizzard Entertainment alongside Mike Ybarra. Speaking of Mike Ybarra, boosting then. So look, there's a thing happened where Mike Ybarra talked about how he is boosting with his guild. He just said he was streaming, his guild was doing a sales run. The thing to understand here is that Mike Ybarra plays in a cutting-edge guild, right? A cutting-edge guild, that means, you know, they're out there clearing the mythics. Most of the cutting-edge guilds, and if you've watched our 2 videos on boosting and our 1 dive into gold, those guilds need a lot of gold, and providing boosting services is a very normal thing. So for me, I was choosing to just believe that, look, that's what Mike Ybarra is doing. It's not even his guild. He's just a player in that guild, right? So that's what he's doing. But of course, for a lot of people, though, we're then thinking, yeah, well, you know, boosting, WoW Token has a dimension in that, and, well, you know, Mike, it's a bit different you saying that because you are the co-leader of this company, and it is a company that does, of course, profit from boosting. So there's a whole can of worms there. And I think what then really popped up in all of this is Final Fantasy XIV, where they did an update to what is acceptable to do in the Party Finder. They have basically said that selling boosts and services is punishable by account action. It is no longer acceptable. Now, saying, hey, I want to do something and I will pay you 1 million gil to do it, that is okay. So, asking for a bit of help and saying, hey, I'll provide you with a reward, that's fine. But advertising a boosting service that you are providing, that is no longer okay. Now, technically, I believe the terms of service do say that the LFG finder thingy in WoW is not there for advertising, but obviously it's not really an enforced thing. I think, have a quick little scroll and you can see what's really going on there. It's that sort of thing where with FF14, people have got a lot of faith that the GMs will actually take action, and that they do. For harassment, for even people talking about parsing and things like that, which of course you're not supposed to do. They do take action in those instances, whereas with Blizzard, they really don't. Now, there are upcoming improvements to the group finder that hopefully will help. Overall, though, I think it's just this little 1-2 punch of Mike Ybarra doing a thing, I think from his perspective, rather innocently as a player, that of course is tied up in a big old can of worms. You can take a look at our boosting investigation, where we talked to, we in fact talked to high up people, including leadership of multiple boosting communities, to really get the inside take on it, to work out what was going on. That, our gold video, things like that, to get a bit more of a read on that. But certainly, it's a dramatic enough situation, and having Ybarra accidentally, I think, blunder into that, and then very shortly afterwards, Square Enix kind of just go and do the populist thing, it's not a particularly great look for Blizzard. I think it's just an example of how on this, they've somewhat lost the narrative. As for me, well, you know how I feel. I think that it's actually pretty neat having a goods and a services economy within the game, but we do need to think, why are people being driven toward boosting? Is there a part of the game's reward loop and, the motivations and all of that that's not really working? If loads of people feel like they need boosts, does that highlight some sort of issue within the game? And then also, Blizzard do have an incentive with the black market auction house and with boosting and things like that to push more WoW tokens, and that does kind of create a conflict of interest. So for me, I would say it needs to be removed from group chat, it needs to be removed from the party finder. I think actually going with FF14 is basically the way to do it, where you cannot advertise, but you can solicit someone else's aid. I think that basically is the way to do it, and I suppose then if people want to organize boosts through Discord bots and things, well, at least it won't clog up trade chat and party finder. Perhaps that's a good thing. So there you go. And that really is it for this catch-up, this brief little check-in with the health of World of Warcraft and Blizzard. I sincerely hope that in 6 months, I'm coming back to you and I'm able to have more positive change, more positive stuff, that I can come here and talk about a patch 9.2 that's made us all happy. And maybe even be excited for a 10.0 that genuinely does look it's going in the right direction. For now, though, we are just in that weird murky quagmire. All we can do is try to, keep our marbles, hold our heads high, plow through it, and see how it goes. So till then, I hope you enjoy some fun video games. Have a great time. A thank you to Noom for sponsoring today's video, and I'll see you next time.